Hey everyone. So, tincture season is in full swing. And by tincture season, I mean when you make plants out of only fresh plant matter like I do, you have to be out there constantly getting what you're wanting to be ready for winter. I will not have the option to make, say, a California poppy tincture in the dead of winter. So I gotta make hay while the sun shines kind of situation, right? So that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. We're going to make a California poppy tincture, and this is so easy. I promise you can do this. So you've got yourselves a glut of California poppies and you're like, I want to make a tincture. I really like California poppy tincture. Maybe you've called some home from like my shop updates and you want to make this on your own. Good. That's what I want you to do. I want you to try this medicine and be like, wow, I really like this, but I don't want to buy it all the time. But am I smart enough to? Yes, you are smart enough. You're smart enough to go out there, to find California poppies growing, to get some vodka and do this. So the first thing we're going to do is take out our California poppies. Now you can see that mine are all closed up, and that's because I gathered them when it was dark out and tucked them away in the fridge until now in the morning time to when I could get to them, and so they close. But in the sunshine they full on open up. And so a lot of people wonder like when they should make a California poppy tincture, because the foliage starts coming up in spring. You want to wait until they're blooming and in full flush bloom. I like getting them when they're bloomed enough that they've gone past blooming and that they're getting ready to bloom and that they are blooming. And so check out these 3 stages. So maybe I should do it this way. Okay. Pretend like I'm doing a good job here. So this is looks like a little gnome hat. This is what the bloom looks like before it opens up. This is what the bloom looks like after it's opened. Of course it would open up all the way, but this is what it looks like when it closes at night. And this is what it looks like when the bloom falls off. And now the reason that we want to wait until they're like in this varying stage is because they all have different latex content. And so like if you are allergic to latex, this is something that you might want to be avoiding. Not everybody who has a latex allergy has a reaction to naturally occurring latex, but this is something we're going to be using internally. So don't just like take it without looking into it, trying for a skin reaction and things like that, because you don't want to be having an internal latex reaction. So, but you're like, latex? Why does it have latex in it? Well, she's in the poppy family. She is a poppy. She is related to the opium poppy. However, she does not contain opium. That is such a myth. She does, however, contain similar alkaloids that hit the same receptors in her brain. So she's pretty specific for relieving pain. Really good for skeletal pain too, like if you've got like arthritis, bad back, things like that. I love her for that. Anyhow, so you want her when she's blooming and partially blooming and almost blooming and all the different stages, and she will be like that this time of year because she has the highest latex amount, which means we will get a better medicine out of her. Okay. I kind of dumped all that out. Usually I do that after I talk. So the first thing we're going to do after we've gathered our California poppies is use a different knife. I need to sharpen these knives so bad. Is chop her up kind of. Just a little bit. Just enough to make more surface area. Now some people I see just using the blooms. Don't do that because you want to use her stems and stuff. Actually, work smarter, not harder, right? So when we chop it up, it makes more surface space for the alcohol to extract from. But I see people take that too far as well. Like, I don't want you putting this in a food processor. I don't want you chopping it up beyond, like, recognize. You can't recognize her anymore. She's pulverized, right? We don't need to do that because plants and alcohol have been doing this dance for thousands of years, and they know what they're doing. Generally, when people chop up plants like that and use way crazy high, like, grain alcohol, it's because they don't have patience. They don't want to wait the 6 to 8 weeks it'll take for this tincture to be ready. They want to be ready in a week or two. God, there's even some methods where like people use like kind of like a distiller and heat and really like pulverize plant matter and like run the alcohol through it again and again, and they're like ready the same day. But you're not gonna get a whole well-rounded, well-extracted plant ally medicine. You're gonna get a very pharmaceutical like medicine. And when we start playing with the realms of making things into like quick, sudden, pharmaceutical like, we start getting into the realms of having adverse reaction, even to a safe, simple plant. California poppy is believed to be so safe that people give her to infants. Of course, that's something you'll like have to look into and make a decision for on your own, or talking to your doctor, or all that good stuff. But she's a fantastic plant ally. And she's native in a lot more places than California. She grows in Oregon, she grows in Idaho, definitely grows in Washington. I think she's over into the Montana area. But she can go pretty invasive, and a lot of people like to plant her for an ornamental. So you'd be probably pretty capable of going out and finding some California poppy. However, I should tell you that in California, since it's the state flower, it's actually illegal to gather California poppy. So I can't advise you to break the law. But if you were, don't get caught. But I think you can harvest her off of your own land or like private land. It's just state land that becomes an issue, I'm thinking. But I could be completely wrong about the state land situation. So definitely do your research. So I like to have a decent amount of blooms to plant matter, to like her stem and stuff. Blooms or plant matter. I'm always doing these videos like way too early in the morning, and I'm all dressed all fancy because we have to go to like this family function. So in my mind I'm like multitasking a bunch, so forgive me here for being half asleep. But I like to have a good ratio of bloom to, oh, you can see my old label stuck on there, bloom to like stem. So like I will probably take this and then I'll come in here and I'll say, you know, let's get some of these blooms chopped off in there. Because the blooms are, like with any poppy, the bulb after the blooms is where the latex content primarily is. But she's in the stem and stuff too, you know. So you can also take California poppy and you can just dry it to make tea with. It does not taste that great. I like her in tincture form. But yeah, she's just real great medicine for people with, you know, anxiety, insomnia. She kind of just takes the edge off. And some people, even though she doesn't have any opioids in her, I have talked with some people that are getting off of opiates, saying that like they really helped with withdrawal symptoms. Because I'm just guessing, I think it would probably work that way because she stimulates the same area of our brain. And so it's probably tricking the body into thinking what it wants. It has what it wants, right? Kind of like recovering opiate addicts tend to eat a lot of chocolate. Same thing. Stimulates the same area of your brain. So that's my thinking anyhow. So yeah, all we're doing is cutting up this plant, putting it in a jar. You do not have to make this big of a batch. You know, I go hard with tinctures, but like if I was just making this for myself, not to share with other people, this would be like a generational supply, because again, we are taking drops of tincture at a time, not shots. So like, think about how many drops go into a half gallon. So you can buy yourself like a half gallon of organic vodka or whatever you can get a hold of that's 100 proof, and a bunch of little half-pint jelly jars, and you can start gathering up this plant matter and make tons and tons of tinctures that would last you quite a long while, definitely until the next season comes around, and you can do that pretty cheap, you know. So I just think that's a really neat option that people have. And now you need to know the plants you're working with, but tinctures are really simple. They're a really good way to jump into herbalism if you're feeling shy about it. You know, like you can get yourself a safe, simple plant, and you can be like, okay, this is the first thing I'm going to make, and I'm going to trust myself in making it. You know, and a lot of these safe, simple plants, There's no real dangerous dose. Of course, don't take that as like permission to take as much as you want. But like, let's say I had a tincture bottle full of California poppy and I drank the whole thing. It wouldn't kill me. I might feel a little funky. I might sleep for like 15 hours, but it wouldn't kill me. You start getting into the more dangerous exotic and dried plant matter tinctures, that's not always the case. Like, you could really hurt yourself, your kidneys, all kinds of things if you took a lot. So when you work with just these safe, simple plants, you don't have to have so much fear of like, I'm gonna kill myself if I make this and take it wrong, right? And that's just kind of the beauty about using the safe, simple medicine. It's kind of foolproof, right? So now I'm gonna have enough to make a couple gallons of tincture, which is fantastic because a lot of this will sit for a long time, well into the winter, because people love this California poppy tincture, so I try to make a lot. So now I'm just going to fight my, oh, I bet that dropped down. Let me fix it. Let me see if you can see me. I have a high-tech system here of like making sure that my camera is seeing me, and that's just like propping it up on like a hunting knife that I have in here. Okay, so now I'm just going to open up my vodka, and I always use 100 proof vodka. Jeez, this one's fighting me. I always use 100 proof vodka because 100 proof means that it's 50% alcohol and 50% water, which means that I automatically have a safe dose to take. This is already 50-50. Somebody asked a while back, what about the water content that comes out of the plant matter? Not a whole lot's going to come out because this is wet plant matter, so it's already saturated. Does that make sense? You'll get some when you press it, but it's okay if it makes it less than 50-50 because it's more water than alcohol. When we come into problems is when we're using like grain alcohol that's like up into like 180 proof and higher type of crazy Everclear stuff. That alcohol is actually poison. That's why it's illegal in many states. And so that's when you have to start like watering down and doing math and all this kind of crazy complicated stuff to make it safe to ingest. So more water isn't problematic until you get to the point where like it's not going to preserve itself anymore. So you have to be in the like 15 to 25% alcohol range before water starts going bad. So it's easier to just buy some 100 proof vodka and dump it over plant matter and know that you're good to go. It can't poison you. You don't have to worry about math. There's no complications here. And you gotta just wait 6 to 8 weeks. So it's just a matter of like having patience. And so I filled that jar up with vodka, put the lid on it, fill out a label to go over the old wash label. These labels are hard to get off. Sometimes we just put, like, but when you wash it in the dishwasher, all the writing comes off, but it's not quite intact for the most part. So we just put a label over a label, and eventually they just come off in one big piece. So I make my own labels using just like some of those like Address Avery things and an online label creating program, which I believe you get access to when you buy, you know, like labels. Fighting me the whole time today, isn't it? Usually it doesn't slide off. I'm assuming you can see me because I can see that. That's the way that works, right? So you don't have to make a complicated label like mine. Like mine on here says it's a tincture, honey, oil infusion, other, date began, wildcrafted, store-bought, garden-grown mix, content. I have to put a lot of information on here because I have to create batch numbers so I know what is what and where it went to and where it came from. But what you can do if you don't want to make these labels is just get yourself some masking tape or just blank labels and just write on it California poppy tincture, 100 proof vodka, date began. You know, so I'll write on here what it is, and then what type of alcohol I used, which is almost always 100 proof vodka. I'm going to write the date on here. I'm going to mark that it's a tincture. Put what it is. Where I got it from. And that it's wild crafted. And then I'm going to stick the label on my jar, so I know what it is. Although I wouldn't forget what it is, but sometimes if you get really overzealous and you're making your first batches of tinctures and you're just now getting to meet these plants and all of a sudden you've got like 20 jars on a shelf, it is very feasible that you're going to forget who's who. So definitely label it. And now I'm going to just sit her in a cool, dark place for 6 to 8 weeks. You can definitely let her sit longer than that. Don't worry if you forget about her. This can sit forever. Alcohol doesn't go bad. One thing though, if it's somewhere really, really hot, alcohol can evaporate. Although that's pretty hard to do if you've got this label on, this cap on pretty good. But yeah, 6 to 8 weeks in a cool, dark place, and then strain her out. And I like to use California poppy, average doses between 5 to 10 drops as needed. But you're smart enough to chop up some flowers, put them in a jar, and pour vodka over them. You don't need to spend thousands of hours of studying or thousands of dollars learning that. You live in a time where pretty much all information can be obtained for free. And I won't go off on too much of a rant here. There is a time for study courses that can come in handy for some people. But a majority of time when you pay to take herbal classes, you are just literally paying somebody to compile all this free information out there and feed it to you. And usually at that point in time, it has their own personal impressions upon it. And that's just the way it goes. Even when you're learning from me over these videos, you're getting my personal opinion and my beliefs and my functionality type stuff fed to you as well. But when you go out there and you start learning on your own and questioning on your own and being curious and compiling all this information, you can have your own view. And you can really make your own educated decision. And it gets to me when I see people think that they can't do this because they haven't paid somebody to teach them. And a lot of that, people will tell you that this should be way more complicated, you should be doing this, this, and that. Any herb book you open up for the most part is going to have all of these really intimidating ratios and this whole process, and you're like, oh my god, I don't know that I'm smart enough to do this. And a lot of that is because they want you to feel dependent on them. The more complicated it is, the more you need them, and the more you need them, the more money they make off of you. I'm telling you that you don't need me. You can do this on your own. You can go and be like, yep, I properly identified that's definitely California poppy. Oh, here's a bottle of 100 proof vodka, and here's a jar. I'm going to dump them together. Ta-da! Tincture. It doesn't have to be as complicated as people tell you, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And you're smart enough to do all of this on your own. So I will end my rant because I have a lot of medicine to make today, and also a bunch of side salads for the barbecue that I need to go in the next few hours. So if you like my videos and hear me go off about stuff here and there, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when the next video comes on, like and comment so I know that you're here. Come find me on Instagram and you can learn way more about me. I don't just talk about herbs, I talk about all kinds of stuff on there. And you can find all that by going to the link in my bio here and my website and all kinds of other things that I offer. And just remember that, again, you are smart enough to do this, okay? Alright? I'll see you next time. Bye.